So, hello aspirants, let's get started with lecture number 10. We are doing Aristotle in Western political thought, and today we will be dealing Aristotle part 3. Okay, we have already done with like life and time of Aristotle, his theories in Nicomachean ethics, that is theory of knowledge, idea, theory of four causes, and etc. Then we have shifted to his magnum opus, that is politics, and in politics we have already done with his theory of citizenship, his theory of constitution, his theory of slavery. Okay, and today we will be dealing mainly with his theory of property, okay, and his theory of constitution. So if you haven't watched the previous lecture, I would request you all to go and watch that for better understanding and clarity. So before moving further, ensure to subscribe to the channel, that is UPSC Geek by NRG, and enjoy the lecture. Okay, so let's start with his theory of property. As a disciple of Plato, he also understood the problem associated with property. Like, as you all know that Plato was basically promoting the idea of communism, okay, in his theory of justice. To have a just state, we have to have a philosopher king, right, where he will be driven mainly by the reason and not passions, right, and to ensure that he is driven by, and the entire state of Athens is driven by passion, not passion but reason and courage, he ensures that there is a communism prevailing in the city state. Okay, so being a disciple of Plato, Aristotle also continues the legacy, so he also understands the problem associated with property. However, he does not conform to the Plato's approach, right? Basically, Plato is a radicalist. Okay, he is promoting a complete radical idea of communism, but Aristotle is understanding the notion that the communism is not the best practicable or the golden rule or the golden mean of completely abolishing the property. Okay, so we will see how his theory of property is being propounded here. So Aristotle was propounder of just property, right? So Aristotle, there is basically two type of property according to Aristotle. First is just property and second is unjust property. Okay, so just property are those kind of properties which are the product of one's labor. Okay, and labor also includes the labor by the slaves, right? As we have seen in the previous slide how Aristotle supported the slavery system, right? So the property which is the product of labor, which also includes slave, are considered to be just property according to Aristotle. Okay, so this is called as labor theory of property in Aristotle's theory of property in his magnum opus, that is politics. Okay, labor theory of property, remember this. So Aristotle has alluded some of the benefits of property, right? Why one should go and accumulate property, right? Aristotle does not prefer to abolish the private property because of benefits it includes. Okay, so what are the benefits? It motivates to work hard, right? As the human beings, right, individual is also driven by appetite. So here the property becomes a reason to work hard, a motivation to work hard, right? So first reason is that it motivates to work hard. The second reason is it gives sense of achievement, right? If I am accruing a product of my labor, that is the wealth that is being created out of my labor, then it will also give me a sense of achievement to keep working hard each day. Okay, so the accumulated wealth or property gives sense of achievement according to Aristotle. That was the second point. Okay, the third is the man of property are the men of reason, so they contribute to the stability of the state. Okay, so as we have seen in his previous theory that the men who are the men of property are basically the men of reason, right? Through their reason they have ensured to accumulate their property by working hard, right? So they contribute to the stability of the state because they do not want any instability so as to have any kind of effect on their accumulated wealth or the property. So they basically propound the idea of status quoism or stability in the state. They do not want any kind of disruption, as in the case of radicalists. Okay, so which system of property is the best according to Aristotle? Okay, so let's say this is also the flow of the theory, people. Like if in question, let's say it is asked, write about Aristotle's theory of property, so this would be the flow. Okay, it makes the answer looks very holistic. So according to Aristotle, which system of property is the best? Okay, so first idea which is been given here is common ownership, common use. That is there will be a common ownership of the property. Let's say there is a piece of land, the entire community will be owner of that particular land, and the entire community will use the land simultaneously. Okay, so that perspective is known as communism approach. Okay, so let's see what it is. Aristotle rejects the system because it deprives us from the virtue of private property or ownership. Okay, as men are driven by the passion or appetite, it basically deprives individual from the virtue of private property and ownership, right? That is achievement, productivity and stability, right? The system of common ownership can never be productive because everyone's property is no one's responsibility, right? Very appropriate. As we all know that everyone's property is no one's responsibility. If let's say a piece of land is being owned by everyone, no one will be willing to maintain that, right? In case of wear and tear. Let's say in the case of public goods, right, where there is a common ownership, hence nobody is obliged to take responsibility of that in order to maintain that, because every other person thinks that every other will do the requirements, right, and he generally escapes from the duty. That's why it is said that everyone's property is no one's property. So this statement needs to be remembered as a basic premise for common ownership and common use, that is communism of theory of property. Okay, the second idea which is being given by Aristotle is basically common ownership and individual use. Like there is a piece of land, it will be owned by the community, but it will only be used by a single individual. Let's see how valid that is. Okay, so explicitly Aristotle tells that it is irrational. Okay, it is irrational in the sense it is not possible, it is not rational. According to him, if something is irrational, it will not be found or continued, right? If something is irrational, there are higher chances that it will not be found. Even if it get found, it cannot be continued, because real is rational and rational is real. Okay, since it is a rare possibility, even if it exists, it will be extremely exploitative. Okay, so let's say there is a resource curse in Africa where a particular resource industry is owned by a single individual or dictator, and we know the exploitative nature of that particular dictator, how exploitative are the practices prevailing in Africa, right, at the cost of community and at the cost of society. So that is the end result of common ownership and individual use. It leads to a extreme exploitation of the resources. So even it is irrational, right, it is irrational, and even if it exists, it will be highly exploitative. The best example is the resource curse in Africa. Okay, the third possibility which is being given by Aristotle is individual ownership and common use. That is, one person will own a property and there will be a common use of that, like anyone can use it, right, but it will only be owned by one person. So Aristotle considers this to be an example of his fundamental idea of golden mean. So Aristotle considered this to be a golden mean, that is best practicable. Property is a source of motivation, sense of achievement, productive social stability. Okay, Aristotle understood the negative aspects of extreme poverty. Okay, so what are the negative aspects of extreme property? So the negative aspects of extreme property is basically arrogance, it's basically exploitation. So Aristotle understood the negative aspect of extreme property. He believes that persons should have moderate wealth. Okay, he always propounded the idea of moderation, that everyone should practice moderation. If anyone wants to accumulate wealth, it should be in moderation, not in excess, because it will lead to arrogance, and not even in meagerity or subtlety, because it will lead to ignorance. Okay, so Aristotle propounded the idea of moderation. Okay, persons should contribute for the well-being of others. After all, man is a social animal, right? So he is saying that persons should contribute for the well-being of others. If I am having a particular piece of property, I should let it be used by common people, because at the end even I am a social animal and I have to think about the welfare of the community, welfare of the people, right? So society plays role in the life of man, and man should also contribute to the society, right? So it is very soundful that society shapes me and I should also think about the contribution to be made to the society for the general welfare of the people and society at large. Okay, so Aristotle's idea comes near Gandhian idea of trusteeship, right? So Gandhi also given this idea of trusteeship is that the property must be held under the trusteeship of an individual, right? Where the owner will be a trustee. People are endowing the owner a trusteeship, right? People are the owner, but they are endowing a particular individual a label of trusteeship. He will be responsible for maintenance, he will be responsible for care of that particular property, but at the end it will be of people's, right? It will be used by the people. So that is the Gandhi's model of trusteeship, which is conforming to the Aristotle's theory of property. Okay, the most proximate Indian theory is Gandhi's idea of trusteeship when it comes to Aristotle theory of property. So keep that in mind. So what is the criticism, and let's look at some of the criticism. Individual ownership may result into extreme inequality of income and wealth. Okay, right? Like Aristotle is propounding the idea of individual ownership and common use, right? So there are only few individuals who will be owning a majority of the property, and what will be the ultimate result? The ultimate result will be the extreme inequality of income and wealth in the society, right? So extreme inequality are not appropriate because they give rise to the revolutionary tendencies in the citizens. Let's say if there is an extremely inequality prevailing in the society, there are higher chances that, as per the Marx, even Marx follow the same line, and he says that if there is an extreme condition of income and wealth inequality is prevailing in the society, it will lead to a higher chances of revolution in the society, right? So this is also one of the criticism of the Aristotle theory of property, which basically says the individual ownership and common use as the best practicable mode of property. It can also lead to the extreme inequality and hence promulgate a revolutionary tendencies in the citizens, right? So this is a criticism. Hence Aristotle proposes the idea of common use, right? So here Aristotle, just as a conclusion to deal with the criticism, Aristotle is also proposing the idea of common use, that is, man gives a part of his property for the welfare of the poor, right? So though there is a condition of individual ownership, but individual is coming forward to make his contribution to the society, so that even the common people can make a common use of the same property, right? And hence the revolutionary tendency of a man will somewhere subside, right? Because man is by nature a social animal. So why an individual owner will come forward to contribute to the society? Because by doing so he will also ensure his own welfare, right? He will also ensure there is a stability by subsiding the revolutionary tendencies which can emerge if there is a extreme inequality in the society, right? So we have to understand, and we have to also keep in the mind that man is by nature a social animal. Thus we get the idea of charity, trusteeship and welfare from Aristotle. Okay, by this notion of Aristotle's, that is individual ownership and common use, we also get the idea of charity, trusteeship and welfare from the Aristotle. Okay, so he is one of the flag bearer of charity, trusteeship and welfare, which will be carried out by his fellow philosophers in the later period of times. Okay, so this was about Aristotle's theory of property. We have looked at the basic introduction. We have seen what kind of property is just. We have seen what are the different kind of benefits of property. We have seen what kind of, or which approach to accumulate property is the best. First we have seen is the communism model, where there is a common ownership and common use. It was not practical because everyone's property is no one's responsibility. Okay, then the second model which we have seen was that about um, common ownership and individual use, right? And Aristotle explicitly says that it is highly irrational, because even if it is possible, it will lead to high exploitation, right? We have seen the example of Africa. And the third, which is the golden mean and the best practicable according to Aristotle, is the individual use and common individual ownership and the common use, okay, which is the best practicable form of property ownership according to Aristotle. Okay, then we have seen the criticism, it can lead to extreme inequality, and conclusion that the idea of charity, trusteeship and welfare are being promulgated by Aristotle because man is by nature a social animal, right? So this was about his theory of property. Now let's see Aristotle's theory of constitution. This is one of the most important theory of Aristotle's politics, okay, or the entire Aristotelian philosophy. Okay, so let's see what is Aristotle's theory of constitution. Okay, so Aristotle's theory of constitution is the most important reason to give Aristotle the title of father of political science. It is the only concept because of which Aristotle is known as father of political science, because of his theory of constitution. So let's see what is the special about his theory of constitution. Political science begins and ends with the state, right? As we have seen in the previous slides or the previous lecture, that political science begins and ends with the state in the mind, right? So state, constitution, their types, revolution are the areas discussed in his book Politics, right? So these are the main concern or the main theme which revolves in his magnum opus, that is Politics. So what are the main theme? First state, then the constitution, then their ties, then the revolution, which are the major themes in his work Politics. So Plato's Republic is an encyclopedic. So Politics, that is Aristotle magnum opus, is considered as the first book of political science and not the Republic, right? Though Plato is also called as father of political philosophy, his magnum opus is not considered as the book of political science. Why? Because Plato's Republic is like an encyclopedic in nature. It is an anthology of different subjects. The book does not deal with the single subject, it deals with the multiple subjects, that is education, ethics, philosophy, sociology, literature, etc. Right? We are seeing here the number of different subjects which is being talked in the Republic. It is not only about political science, it also is about education, ethics, philosophy, sociology, literature, and etc. On the other hand, Aristotle book Politics deal with the core issues. Okay, so just to give it a basic idea, here it is being talked about that Republic is an encyclopedic in nature, where it does not only talks about political science, it talks also about other subjects like education, ethics, philosophy, sociology, and etc. But in case of Aristotle's Politics, it mainly deals with political science and the core issues lying in the political science, and hence it is called as first book of political science and not the Republic. Okay, so because of its specificity related to political science, the Politics is called as first book of political science and not the Republic. Okay, so he has given the theory of constitution after studying 158 constitution, right? So it is also regarded as Plato's approach to Republic was kind of imaginative, where he gives most idealistic notion of different subject. But here Aristotle's approach to politics was very scientific in nature, where he inculcates various methods like inductive, deductive, observation, and comparison to formulate his theory of constitution or his different theory in his magnum opus, that is Politics. Okay, so Plato's theory is based on his imagination, where Aristotle's analysis is based on the observation of the real constitution, their analysis, comparison, classification, as I have told. Hence his methodology can be called more scientific or proto-science, right? So what is the intellectual context of theory, right? Like why Aristotle has come out with his own theory of the constitution, in spite knowing that his teacher has already cemented or formulated a great theory about constitution. In spite of that why Aristotle came forward with his theory of constitution, mainly to criticize Plato's theory of ideal state, right? He has given his theory of ideal state where philosopher king has the absolute power. Okay, in this context, Aristotle establishes the superiority of rule of law over rule of person. As we have seen that Plato himself advocates certain problem when it comes to the philosopher king, that there are chances that even the institution of philosopher king can go corrupt, right? There are higher chances because the change is the only constant of this world, right? And there are chances that even the institution of philosopher king somewhere can be driven by passion or appetite during a period of time, right? So just to criticize that theory of Plato's ideal state, Aristotle establishes his idea of rule of law or rule of constitution over a rule of person, that is philosopher king. He is giving his theory of constitution where rule of law is superior to the rule of person. Okay, hence he is known as father of constitutionalism. Just because he establishes the superiority of rule of law over rule of person, he is also called as father of constitutionalism. Very important, which needs to be kept in mind. Okay, so what are the salient features of his theory of constitution? Okay, so the first is he makes no distinction between state, constitution and the government. We have seen this in the first lecture, okay, that he makes no distinction between state, constitution and the government, because during his time in the ancient Greece, they were being used interchangeably, right? Because state was somewhere run by the rule of law, that is constitution, and the government was basically responsible in running the state. So they were basically used interchangeably. Hence he makes no distinction between state, constitution and the government. Okay, he classifies his form of government on two parameters, right? So later we will be seeing his classification. So basically he classifies his theory of his form of government on the two parameters. Okay, so first parameter is the objective or the goal of governance. What is the objective of the government? Okay, so first objective is in the interest of the people, right? If there is, let's say there is a democracy, so the first objective or goal of their welfare scheme will be interest of the people, or second, the most corrupt and perverted form will be the interest of the ruler or self. Okay, that will be abnormal governance or pathological approach of pathological way of governance. Okay, and the second parameter is the on the basis of number of person ruling. Okay, let's say if a state is ruled by a single person, then it will be a monarchy form of government. Okay, if it is ruled by few people, then it is a aristocracy form of government. If it is ruled by few people but in the interest of people, then it is polity. And if it is ruled by few people in the interest of themselves, then it is democracy according to Aristotle, which we will also be seeing in the next slide in detail. So this is basically a classification which is given by Aristotle. Okay, so see, so we have seen on the basis of objective and goal, right? In vertical column we can see the public interest. Okay, first objective is public interest and second objective is selfish interest. Okay, and in the horizontal rows we can see the number of rulers. Okay, if the number of ruler is 1 who is working for the public interest, it will be monarchy. Okay, and if the number of ruler is 1 working for the selfish interest, then he will be tyrannical ruler. Okay, tyrannical monarchy. Rule of 1 ruling for public interest, it will be monarchy. Rule of 1 ruling for selfish interest or the self interest, it will be tyranny. There are rule of few who will be working for the welfare of the public interest, then they are basically considered as aristocracy. There are rule of few who are working for the selfish interest, they are basically oligarchy. Okay, again there are rule of many who are working for public interest. This is basically a polity or constitutional democracy, which is also considered as the best practicable according to Aristotle. And again there are rule of many who are working for the selfish interest, they are basically democracy according to Aristotle. Okay, so let's see what is monarchy or the rule of philosopher king according to Aristotle. Okay, So rule of one person in the interest of the people. Okay, so it is the rule of one person in the interest of people, according to Aristotle, is monarchy. So according to Aristotle, it is the best form of government. Okay, so even Aristotle is accepting that it is the best form of the government, but it is not the best practicable. Okay, because uh, uh, Aristotle approach is also pragmatic, right, where he accepts the idea that though the monarchy or the rule of philosopher king is the best form of government, it is not best practicable, because it is impossible to find the philosopher king in this world. Philosopher king enjoys absolute power, yet he is not corrupt, is not possible, right? As Plato is devoting absolute power over the institution of philosopher king, but Aristotle do not think that it is not possible of being philosopher king a corrupt, right? Because power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So this is the notion which is being given by Aristotle. Okay, and hence even if we find a philosopher king, there are higher chances of him getting corrupt and becoming tyrannical. Okay, so the perverted, a self-serving, a most corrupt nature of monarchy will be tyrannical, because which is basically a ruler serving the self-interest. That will be the tyrannical form of government. Okay, the second is aristocracy. So what is aristocracy? Aristocracy is basically the rule of few in the interest of the people. Okay, if there is a rule of few or the group of people who are working for the interest of the people, they are basically aristocracy or the aristocrat class. Okay, so rule of individual, monarchy get replaced with aristocracy. So here Aristotle says that in the cycle of change, the rule of individual, that is monarchy, will get replaced with aristocracy, because at the end, people will start demanding accountability and credibility to have that notion of check and balances on the monarchy, and hence ultimately there will be a rule of few instead of rule of one, and hence the rule of individual, that is monarchy, will get replaced with aristocracy. Okay, that will be rule of few for the interest of the people. And if aristocracy starts serving its personal interest, it becomes oligarchy. Okay, the one which we see in Russia. Okay, when the group of few people who start serving their own personal interest, it will ultimately become oligarchy form of government, right? So why we are seeing this cycle of change? Why Aristotle is propounding the idea that monarchy will become tyrannical again will ultimately come to the aristocracy will go to become oligarchy, then oligarchy will become polity, and polity will become democracy, then again democracy will be re-established as monarchy. Why we are seeing this constant tussle of change? Because Aristotle propounds the idea that the world is world of change, and the change is the only constant. Okay, and hence even the form of government will change with a time, right? So this is the basic idea about his idea of aristocracy. Okay, the third form of government is polity. Okay, so according to Aristotle, polity is the best practicable form of the government. Okay, so which was the best form of government according to Aristotle? Leave in the comment, try attempting this question, which was the best practicable form of government according to Aristotle. So okay, it was monarchy. Okay, monarchy, rule of philosopher king for the interest of people, but he says that it was not best practicable. So what is the best practicable form of government according to Aristotle? It is basically polity. Okay, so according to Aristotle, polity is the best practicable form of government. Okay, so what are the features of polity? Okay, let's see some of the features of polity. Polity is the rule of the law, where the ruling class act according to the law, which is made collectively by the people through reason and deliberation. So we have seen in the classification of Aristotle in the previous slide that it is basically rule of many for the welfare of the people. Okay, for the betterment of the people. So it is not humanly possible that everyone will engage themselves in the ruling, right? Hence they come together and formal law, okay, formal law, rule book, according to which there are people who will rule to the public. Okay, who will rule for the welfare of the public. Hence the ruling by a ruling class as per the book of law or rule book is a political or polity form of government according to Aristotle. Okay, so polity is direct democracy. The second feature is polity is direct democracy. Okay, where all citizens participate in the formulation of the law. Okay, all citizens participate in the formulations of the law, that is the direct democracy, which is polity. Okay, so polity is the rule of middle class. Okay, rule of middle class. Now here connect this concept to his theory of citizenship. Okay, according to Aristotle theory of citizenship, everyone were not the citizens. Okay, so his definition of citizenship was very narrow, which was only limited to the birth and blood concept. Okay, that is the young ancient Greek adult belonging to the propertied class. Okay, so they were basically granted this citizenship, and rest like women, children, slaves and old men were excluded from the citizenship, right? So they were the basically middle class propertied men, okay, who were engaging themselves in the deliberative and judicial functions. They were basically the citizens in the Aristotle theory. Okay, so polity is the rule of middle class. Okay, that is those who do not have a lot of wealth, and also those who are property less. Okay, so this is a rule of middle class in the sense Aristotle is excluding the people who are having excess of wealth, right? Because they were develop a virtue of arrogance in them due to their excessivity of wealth, and he is also excluding the people who are poor or propertyless, because they are kind of ignorant. Okay, and those who possess wealth in moderation, they are basically the part of his middle class. Okay, so that was his best practicable form of government, which was what? Polity. And the last form of government is democracy. Okay, so democracy is the rule of many. Okay, polity is also a rule of many, but democracy is rule of many poors, right? So when many poors come and rule, they become basically a democracy. The form of government become democracy, who symbolizes ignorance, right? As in the previous lecture, we have seen how the propertyless men or the men without any wealth or property are considered as ignorant, because ignorance is the cause of poverty according to Aristotle. Okay, so thus democracy is the rule of ignorant poors. Hence democracy is the second most worst type of government. Okay, so what was the first most worst type of the government according to Aristotle? It was tyranny. And the second most worst type of government according to Aristotle is democracy, right? So many ignorant poors will elect the demagogue ruler. Okay, demagogue ruler. Who are the demagogue ruler? So demagogue rulers are the one who shows that they have or they possess democratic values, but in reality they are dictators who are working for the self-interest. So they are the demagogues rulers. Okay, so this was his Aristotle fourth form of government, that is democracy, right? So what is the cycle of change? How one form of government will change to other, and then the cycle will continue. Okay, so change is the law of nature, as we have seen that change is the only constant in the nature, right? So tyranny changes to aristocracy. We have seen how monarchy gets translated into tyranny, right? That is where the rule of one for the interest of the public, it was monarchy. But when the interest get metamorphosed into the self, then it becomes tyranny, and hence tyranny changes to aristocracy. Aristocracy gives birth to oligarchy. Oligarchy eventually turns into polity, and polity gets transformed into democracy. Okay, and democracy degrades into tyranny, and the cycle continues. So this is basically the cycle which we have discussed in the previous slides, right? So this is one of the most eminent and also most talked about statement of Aristotle, which says that polity is the best practicable form of the government, as we have seen in his classification, right? So what is the rationale behind him saying the polity is the best practicable form of the government? Let's see how does Aristotle is rendering the conviction to the idea that polity is the best practicable form of government, right? So Aristotle is known as father of political science. One of the reason is his contribution to the theory of constitution, right? So because of his contribution to the theory of constitution, he is known as father of political science and also father of constitutionalism, because he gives more superiority to the rule of law over a rule of person, right? So he has studied around 158 constitution, and on the basis of his analysis, he has given the classification of constitution. On the basis of his observation and analysis, he suggests the polity is the best practicable form of government, right? So this is basically explicitly or suggesting the most scientific approach of Aristotle in analyzing 158 different constitution of the world, right? And on the basis of that, he is coming out with the best practicable form of government, that is polity. So this is the first validation that is being rendered by Aristotle himself, that his approach was more scientific. So we can say that by comparing 158 constitution, he is coming out with the best practicable form of government, that is polity, right? We can see the application of his principle of golden mean while arriving at this conclusion, right? Polity is golden mean of oligarchy and democracy, right? So polity here is the golden mean of oligarchy and democracy, since it is situated between these two form in his classification. So polity is the rule of middle class. It avoids the extremes of other two systems, that is oligarchy is the rule of few rich, while democracy is the rule of the masses or the many ignorant people. So as he is giving the idea that polity is the golden mean of the two extreme, that is oligarchy and democracy. So what is oligarchy? Oligarchy is the rule of few rich people for their self-interest, whereas what is democracy? Democracy is basically rule of few poor people for their self-interest, right? So he is taking a golden mean of both of it, which is polity. Polity is basically a rule of middle classes, right? Because he has given how the people with excess wealth will be a kind of having a virtue of arrogance in them, and similarly in the case of poor classes, they will be having virtue of ignorance, right? So hence he is taking a golden mean where a state will be ruled by a middle classes, right, who will be having property in moderation, right, and who will be ruling for the welfare of the people. So that is the polity, which is the best practicable form of government according to Aristotle, right? So it is a rule of rich but not extremely rich. It is the rule of many but then few, but not of too many, okay? So here Aristotle is trying to say, though it is a rule of middle class, it is not the rule of too poor, to people who are too wealthy, or people who are too poor, okay? So he is taking an idea of best practicable form of government, that is polity, by application of his technique of golden mean, right, that is doing something in moderation, okay? So what is the rule of middle class is always better according to Aristotle, okay? So here Aristotle is trying to advocate the idea that the rule of middle class is always better. So let's see why it is better. Because rich and poor both are susceptible to crimes, okay? Either too rich will engage in the crime due to their arrogance, or too poor will engage in the crime because of their ignorance to accumulate wealth, okay? One commits crime out of arrogance and other commits crime out of ignorance, right? So rich will not trust poor, poor will not trust rich, right? So let's say there is a form of oligarchy or government, that is oligarchy, where few rich are ruling. So what are the chances that poor will conform to their rules, right? There are very less chances, because they will not end up trusting each other, right? So that is not the best form of government according to Aristotle, and hence he is giving this rationale that there will be no trust between the rich and the poor, and hence there will be no conformity to the law. Similarly, if there is a democracy where it will be ruled by the poor, the rich will not end up trusting the poor, and hence there shall be no conformity to the rules which are formulated by the poor or the demagogues, okay? So rich will not trust poor, poor will not trust rich, okay? Hence he is taking a golden mean, that is polity, middle class, who will be trusted by both the rich section and also the poor section, okay? Hence either of the rule will not be stable. However, both will trust the middle class, hence the rule of middle class is more stable. So this is the rationality which is being given by Aristotle to support that polity is the best practicable form of government, right? So first we have seen how the polity is between the two extremes of oligarchy and what democracy. What is oligarchy? It is the rule of rich, and what is democracy? It is basically a rule by poor, okay? And hence they are both susceptible to the crime, and he is taking a golden mean, that is polity, which will be trusted by both rich section and poor section, and hence he is establishing the notion that polity is the best practicable form of government. Okay, so he gives the example of many great lawgivers like Solon, okay, coming from the middle classes. He is basically propounding or giving the idea of great lawgivers like Solon, who were basically hailed from middle classes. Okay, so middle class possess reason, and since they are not very rich, they are not arrogant, and thus the rule of middle class is very best practicable form of government, right? So this is the kind of conclusion to the notion that though middle class do not accumulate excess wealth, there are less chances that they will also, there are higher chances that they will also not have a sense of arrogance and ignorance. Okay, and hence they will be possessed by reason, and hence the polity will become the best practicable form of government. So rule of middle class is most stable. Aristotle believes that stability is the virtue of the government. Okay, basically the status quoist approach of the state, right? Hence the rule of middle class, that is polity, is the most as stable, which is one of the important virtue of the government. Okay, so with this we come to an end, and I hope that you people have understood the theory that are his theory of property and his theory of constitution. And guys, ensure to watch it just to re-watch it. Okay, the more you watch a video, the more you read on the slides, the better clarity you will be able to get on the particular subject, okay, or the particular concept, right? The idea behind me giving the slides in very detail is that if you read time and time again the slides, you will be able to get the understanding better cemented. Okay, and you will also be able to produce it during your exam. So take a screenshot, store it, or do whatever you can. Ensure to read on the slides and also hear the lecture, so that it will give you more clarity and more understanding over the concepts. Okay, and with this I come to an end, people, and thank you so much for listening till the very end and sitting through the lecture. And keep striving, because thus you strive so you thrive. So thank you and good day.